Again, my name is Michael Murphy. I'm a charter captain. I'm also an environmental biologist. I worked for Mosaic for several years. Just got tired of drinking the Kool-Aid. My wife said, "Why don't you go be a charter captain? You like teaching people how to fish?" And I said, "Don't threaten me twice." So here I am. I enjoy fishing. I enjoy teaching people how to fish, and it's a passion. The minute a fisherman loses his passion for fishing or loses that thrill for catching that fish, he needs to find another hunt. And I haven't hit that yet. We were fishing today with Chris's crew. We caught a couple of nice triple tail out of the buoys over there at the. There's a couple of cans for the Davis Island Yacht Club. Found one underneath both of those. Yesterday had a charter, caught some nice snapper, and also caught some nice sheep's head out there at the Bahia Reef. Got some snook around the docks. This is the time of year where you really want to pay attention to the docks inside the residential canals. This has been kind of unseasonably warm here this week, so the bites get kind of been hit or miss. Fishing the non-traditional areas where you would normally fish in the wintertime. But once we start getting some of these cold fronts roll back through here and the temperatures start to drop again, power plant outfall is going to produce some sharks, some cobia, get inside there, get some pompano, some trout, and some sheep's head. Basically everything's going to be inside that power plant outflow over there. One of the things that you really target in January and February is going to be sheep's head. Does anybody like catching sheep's head? Anybody want to know about catching sheep's head? Different ways, okay. What I do is I usually take a 20-pound test leader line. I got to move these out of my way, otherwise I'll have to click them all day. I take a 20-pound test leader line, about 3 feet, 2 feet. But I'll take my weight, take a number 1 or a 1/0 J hook, and I'll take my weight, or just a little split shot, grip it on there, about 1/4 ounce or a number 5, just enough to get it down there. You want to get that tide when it's almost slack. You don't want to have that heavy ripping tide because you've got that long bow, and there's a lot of times it's very difficult to try and keep up with the bite, particularly with sheep's head. But I'll take that weight and put it right down almost on top of the knot. 2 reasons for that. One is that you've got really good sensitivity, and you can feel that weight at the end. I use just a regular trout rod when I do that, but you pull up enough tension, call it the perfect inch. The perfect inch is about that much. That's enough where you can actually feel that weight move, and then you're already ready to set that hook. You don't want to have all that slack in there in this kind of type of fishing. But you drop that down there, and fiddler crabs are my bait of choice. Just hook them very gently right through one of the legs and up through the top of the shell. Drop it down there, and just wait for that sheep's head to come in there. One thing I recommend before you really start dropping a line down there is Bahia Reef works really good. All the reefs work pretty good, the Bahia Reef and the Port Manatee Reef. Port Manatee Reef has typically the larger relief. Does everyone know what relief means? Relief is the distance between the basic substrate, the bottom of the ground, and the top of the structure that you're looking at. That's your relief. So you may be 16, 20 feet of water, but your relief is going to be 3 or 4. That's what you're looking at Port Manatee. Over there in the Bahia Reef, it's kind of a rubble debris, and it's kind of scattered out everywhere. You may find some piles that are a little bit, it's like 2 big polygons merged together. Down on the southern quadrant down here, you'll actually see that the rubble pile kind of strings down and then cuts off and goes west. And those are the kind of things you're looking for when you're trying to find sheep's head, trying to find good structure, good substrate, good base for barnacle recruitment and crustacean recruitment. The same thing with the Bahia Reef. That's what we did yesterday morning when we started out. We went around, we just sort of did a little quick grid, said, okay, here's some debris, there's some debris, there's some debris. And then we just sort of got in the middle of that X. The sheep's head kind of move around like a wolf pack. So they're going to be moving around that reef a little bit. So everybody will start getting knocked down, then it'll go away for a little bit. Don't leave, don't give up. Those sheep's head will come back around again, and then you'll get knocked down again. So don't give up just because the bite stops for 10, 15 minutes. Stay in there. They'll come back around. The snapper, we caught several good sized snapper, 13, 14 inch, 15 inch snapper yesterday on the reef out there at Bahia Reef. The bite's good and strong, caught some good grunts out there as well. Trout for me right now have been kind of difficult and elusive, so to speak. I did catch one the day before that was about 23 or 24 over in the Andalusia Canal, and then I caught a 19, 20 inch in the Mira Bay Canal. When when the cold weather really sets in, that Mirror Bay Canal will really be on fire. Fish the bottoms with pop and cork, or you can use a traditional, just a regular circle hook with a small split shot, just enough to keep it steady. You don't want to put a big old chunking thing on there because they'll pick up that extra weight and get freaked out. And that's the other reason why with the sheep's head, I keep that weight right there next to that crab. That way it's not something he grabs the crab and then all of a sudden then 6 inches later, he's got another pull on him, because sometimes he'll freak out. So if he picks up that whole thing, he thinks it's the weight of the crab. So anyway, with the trout, I usually put my split shot up about 10 inches away. That shrimp has a little bit of mobility. You can swim around a little bit, and don't use a heavy weight, so that's not a shock to the trout when he grabs the shrimp. The way I hook the shrimp, particularly when I use the additional weight with the hook, is I hook him through the tail. The traditional movement of a shrimp is backwards. He crawls forward and sideways. When he skitters, he moves backwards, just like a crawfish. So I hook him through the back of the tail, straight up. So you've got your shrimp hanging out this way, his whiskers and tentacles and his horn sits out this way. You just hook it straight up to the back of the tail, almost as close to the back of the tail as you can, and still get enough meat in there so that that hook stays straight, or stays intact in the shrimp.
Do you clip the tail?
Pardon me?
Do you clip the tail?
No, I do not.
Okay.
No, not in this method. Another way I do it, I use just regular jig heads, and I'll bite the tail off or pinch the tail off and rig that shrimp on just like you do a plastic bait, with the back end going all the way up to the head of the jig head, with the horn and the legs out towards the back of the hook. Pull the hook in towards the top, straight out the back there. Sometimes you can peel the shrimp off a little, get them a little bit soft, a little mushy. You can get a little bit more of that shrimp on there as well. One thing we did also, when we were doing the sheep's head, we found that they were getting a little bit finicky, and they were biting the heads off of them. So we took that shrimp, rather than just hooking them one time, we took the shrimp and we came in through the backside of the shrimp and hooked him one time, and then turned the hook around again and came up through the bottom and exposed just the barb of the hook through the top of the shrimp, so that there was a lot more hook in the shrimp than would typically be with just a single hookup. Snook are still really prevalent around the area right now. We've got a couple of them over there at the first dock on the way in over towards Andalusia. Also catching a few of them over in the Mirror Bay canals and the Symphony Isles canals. Even the places that you would normally pinpoint, everybody knows where Black Point is. Typically that's a good location. If you don't know where it is, I can show you on a map somewhere, but you have an inflow of tidal current coming in from the end. When it comes in, there's not enough access to fill the void back in the back here inside Cockroach Bay. So it actually comes in and it flows back south. Even though the tide's coming in to the north, when it sweeps around that corner, it stacks up against those mangroves. And the snook will pile up against those mangroves right there. And speaking of mangroves, I wanted to talk to some of you guys, particularly the kayakers, because you want to be able to scout an area before you get to that point. So what I do is one thing I talk about is the type of mangroves that you're looking at in Cockroach Bay area and the surrounding areas. There's two types of mangrove areas that we're looking at particularly. It's going to be the black mangroves and the red mangroves. The black mangroves have got those little snorkels that you see sticking up. You see them all over the time. That's an indication of a very shallow water, very shallow drop. So those areas that you really don't need to focus a lot of time on, unless you know that there's a good slough or a good trough in front of that thing. Sometimes there is. But when you see those roots that are diving down into the water, a lot of times right now in the wintertime, you see them sticking up with the barnacles hanging on down there. There's nothing underneath there. Those are adventitious roots that come off, and those are the red mangroves. And they drop down into the water to get their water supply that they need. And they extract the water through their root system and also through the bottoms of their leaves. That's where they excrete the salt, rather. So when you're coming up to an area and you see those red mangroves and you see those roots hanging down the bottom, that's indicative of a very deep drop right next to the shoreline edge. And those are areas that you want to go and concentrate on your snook and your redfish. There was an area on Tropical Island, and call it JP International. I don't know if you know that one. But basically, if you don't know what Tropical Island is that big island right across the canal, right across the main branch of the body of river from Shell Point Marina. That's Tropical Island. And on the back side of that island there, it's got those red mangroves, and it's a really good drop. About 15 feet off of that shoreline is an oyster bar. And inside that little trough right there, I think we caught 25 redfish 3 days ago in just a matter of about 45 minutes. Most of them were bottom of the slot, had a few of them that were top of the slot. This time of year, when the water starts getting cooler and cooler and cooler with these fronts coming in, those fish are gonna push way up into the river. I mean, I'm talking all the way up to the bridge. Snake Island, Snake Island? Yeah, Snake Island over there. There's a couple of passes that come back in there, and then also up towards the residential area, it's got some good docks over there. By all means, go over there and hit those areas for redfish. Snake Island on the south side of Snake Island, it's got a nice canal that runs through. The outgoing tide when it comes out from the bridge sweeps around like this. So the natural tendency for that tidal current is to come down that I call it Snake River, but to come down that Snake River and push through here rather than taking that turn and going south. So it's got good tidal flow in there. There's an old sunken boat back in there. I don't know if you guys know about that one. But on the other side of that canal, there is a good spot for redfish and snook right now.
So where's Snake Island?
Snake Island. Are you familiar? Have you ever been to the bridge?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you go to the bridge and you're coming west, and you pass Todd Fouché's place right there. I don't know if you know Todd Fouché. He sells those roundabout boats. Yep. There's one cut that goes into some residential property, some residential houses and stuff, and just past that area, there's a little place that just kind of tapers off and takes off south over that way. So if you make it to the bridge, come back, and it's the second creek from the bridge coming back around. It's real skinny, so don't get caught in there with a deep draft boat, but it's
I'm out.
You're out.
Unless I'm kayaking.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I've seen, in the last year and a half, I've seen more pictures of triple tail than they have in the previous 10 years. Let's go over catching, the technique for catching triple tail, if you would, please.
Okay, I'm not really excellent on catching triple tail. We just kind of got butt lucky today. We caught some really nice triple tail. One of the things you're looking for when you're finding triple tail is you want to find an old marker or an old buoy. You don't hit those new ones. One of the most difficult things about hitting crab trap floats is you don't know how long they've been there. But the crab trap floats and also the channel marker buoys, both the big cans and nuns, the big reds and green ones, the posts that delineate MacDill Air Force Base, the Davis Island Yacht Club buoys, those all hold triple tail. One thing to go by and do is we'll just go by at about 20 knots and just kind of run by the buoys within sight distance and see if we can see anything. A lot of times you'll see cobia there as well. Just drive by and see if you can see them. That's a quick, easy way to do it. The other way to do it is to go over there and run about 4 feet of line, 5 feet of line, of leader line between a bobber and a cork. Put a small split shot right up about a foot. That gets that bait down there pretty quickly. Cast it upstream or up current of the marker or post or whatever it is you're trying to fish around, and let that thing just drift right on by. The bite's not going to be like you see typically with a snook or a trout or something like that. That bobber's just going to stand up. It might bounce under. It might just gently go underwater. But those triple tail, they'll float sideways. They call them a leaf fish because, you know, you ever look them up and they go, oh, it's a leaf fish. Oh, how cute. Well, this leaf fish is this big, you know. So, but typically they'll float sideways and pretend to be a leaf and sit in the current back in the eddies on the back side of them, and they're waiting for that bait to come swimming by or drifting by, and they'll hit that bait as it comes by. So that's what you're doing. You're trying to emulate or assimilate the shrimp drifting with the current around that marker buoy for that triple tail to eat and digest.
Do you
that
actually
fish.
see the triple tail, or?
Sometimes you can. The water's really clear and the sun's high. You can see them up there. You just see a bright flash.
How are we hooking that shrimp on that?
Just through the head, right underneath the horn. So it's got a natural presentation. It's kind of drifting along like this. Yeah, just underneath the horn. Try not to hit the dark matter in there because that's his internal organs. Really doesn't matter too much. And the greenbacks work as well, but shrimp team that seem to be the bait of choice. Any other questions?
Go ahead.
Which guy? Go to.
Where's the reds at?
Where the redfish at? I just told you. Caught 25 of them right there at Tropical Island. I've caught redfish in Symphony Isles this week. I've caught redfish over at Tropical Island. I've caught redfish back up there at Snake Island this week. And I've caught redfish in the Apollo Beach canals. Caught black drum, caught snapper, all in the
What about
canal
flats?
systems.
Have you got any on flats yet?
No, I have not. Flats really haven't been producing that much. That's my next project. I've had 9 charters in the last 10 days, so I haven't really been able to get out there and do any scouting. So that's the big thing. One of my other colleagues, Jerry Clark, he and I were talking the other day, yesterday, actually saying we need to get out and do some scouting and try and find these trout.
Where's the flounder at?
A flounder, you know better than that. Flounder, you don't really target flounder per se. It's kind of difficult. It's kind of like, oh look, I caught a flounder. You know, it's different. It's not like Jacksonville where you go to a specific place and you're just going to load up on flounder. Catching flounder over here, you're going to find some sandy patches. We did catch a couple flounder. Where did we catch those? Cockroach Bay boat ramp landings over there. Where you find a good current sweeping around the edge of the mangrove island and a nice sandy flat down there. Just let that, same way rigging, just a small split shot with the shrimp about 8 inches away, and just let that shrimp drift right across the top of that sandy flat, and that's where you're gonna locate your flounder.
There's a couple of those sandbars up towards the bridge, the railroad bridge you're talking about.
Yes, yes.
Where you can go and almost target.
Oh, really?
Just drag up on the edges, if the sandbars are like this, on the edges, just drag it across, drop it down. You know, use a little, those little yellow things that you can catch pompano with too.
Oh, yeah?
Anything like that, just sort of bob that along and just let it just drag right on. And next thing you know, don't get me wrong, you're not gonna get one that's 23 inches.
No.
But you're liable to get one that's 16 inches that you're gonna be able to take home and have for dinner.
Tell you some of the biggest flounder I've got were actually Bahia Beach Reef and the Port Manatee Reef.
Upriver,
Jordan?
where the roundabout place is, have you ever got any of the tarpon that sit out front of it?
No, I have not, but I did hear that there's some good tarpon both on this side of the bridge and the other side of the bridge. Tarpon are holding up over there. There's also some residential tarpon that live inside Symphony Isles as well.
Have you tried fishing at the Trussell Lake lately? Or?
No, I haven't. No, my boat has a top, hard top, so I don't try to get too close to the railroad trestle over there. I can't fit underneath it. I call the guy there, but he gets grumpy every time I call him to open up the locks. But what you got?
You ever fish D5 out there, the green buoy?
D5?
Yeah,
No, I have not fished D5. No, sir.
I thought I had, so I used to be able to catch all kinds of fish there, but the last 2 or 3 years it's been, you know, you used to get a lot of anglo snappers and nice sheephead out there.
And the occasional grouper.
Yeah.
Occasionally get a grouper through there if the
Yeah.
tide's running right, you know, it's the right time of year, yeah.
But the last couple of years it's been dead out there, I don't know,
I don't know. Maybe something changed in the food. Maybe something changed in the patterns of the fish. I doubt that they're gone. They probably just moved off to different locations. I doubt that they're out of the bay. There's plenty of fish in the bay. There's really no secrets. It's really a trick of when to go and what time of year to go and what conditions are right for which type of bait.
Are you fishing incoming, outgoing, and still?
Most of the fishing this week has mostly been a high incoming tide. Really depends on. It's a good question. Incoming tide, outgoing tide. That depends on which side of the mangroves you're fishing. Incoming tide, I would fish like Tropical Island. You're going to have more tidal flow from the main body of river rather than the backsides. On the outgoing tide, look at the flow of the water. If the flow of the water is coming this way, and if you've got an angle of a mangrove coming this way and the main body of water coming this way, then this side is going to be the side to fish over there. If the water's coming the other direction, then obviously that side. But one of the big keys is going to be tidal flow. Snook, redfish, and trout all desire a good moving current. So tidal flow is critical as far as which side of the island you're going to fish. And again, the depth of water as well. So, you know, whether it's the high end of the tide or the low end of the tide.
One of the things that I've always stressed when it comes to that, years ago, Mike Anderson talked me into keeping a little book. And the one thing that he stresses is, maybe you're trying different spots you're scouting, and you're here at an elbow, and there's an outgoing tide, but you don't catch any fish. Well, you write that down in the book, outgoing tide at tropical whatever, or snake whatever, no fish. That doesn't mean on the incoming tide, you can't be on the other side of it and catch fish.
Right,
So my point is, don't give up on it.
right.
You know, when gasoline was $3.75 a gallon or whatever, Woody Gore was saying, you know, there's no need to put out at Williams Park, where he was putting out, and go all the way down to Joe's Island.
Right.
There's plenty of places between Williams Park and Joe's Island where you catch the same species. All you gotta do is go find them.
That's it.
Because I'm shot, our favorite thing has always been Bishop's Harbor. Because it's not hard to get from Bishop's Harbor when you put out a cockroach, unless you have to park the car 1.25 miles away. You know, because you didn't get there at dark 30 in the morning. But that is the one thing that is true. There are plenty of places on either side to go scout and try. And we make it a point when we do fish to try to, we might have a specific place we want to go, but we want to be there at, the tide's going to turn at 11. We want to be there at 10:15.
Right.
We're going to be there at 10:15, but somewhere in between, we would like to scout, because it might be closer from then on. We might have to go all the way to there.
Right.
To be there at 10:15. It's just,
Yep.
How are you on solar, lunar, and all that kind of stuff? Do you like
Very much
like
on that.
Yeah?
That means a lot. That means a
Like the
lot.
4 fish mean a lot.
Yes, more fish means a lot. So lunar tables,
And no
the
bananas,
over,
right?
the over is best, the under is not quite as good, but it's definitely better than what it is over there when it's, you know, at 10 and 2. 6 and 9 is also a good time when the moon sets and rises, are the 4 periods of time. Over, under, set, and rise are the periods of time. It's like, in order is like 1, 2, and tied for 3. So, one thing I wanted to talk about also is when I go scouting for trout. So down in Cockroach Bay, out towards the flats, the grass flats, there's a series of rises and troughs in there, and it's due to the wave attenuation and the sediment as it comes in over periods of years and years and years. But there's actually a ripple effect as you come in there. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll start on the outside with just a plastic jig. And one thing I want to emphasize is if you can't catch greenbacks, don't stress it. Don't waste those golden hours trying to catch greenbacks, because artificial plastic baits work just fine, and shrimp work just as well. But I'll start and I'll work perpendicular to the land formation, and I'll fish each one of those little troughs and try and find out which one of those troughs is most active. And usually if you find that one trough that's working, turn and go parallel down that trough, and those fish are going to concentrate in that one trough. And it's true what they say about you know, bass fishing particularly is like, you know, 95% of the bass are in 5% of the lake. That does hold true. You're going to catch fish just about anywhere, but finding those concentrations of fish is going to it's going to be beneficial. And then one of the ways to do that is to do some scouting. And when I hit those rises and ridges, that's one way to go and try and find your trout run. I had another thought just then, but it went away. You know, the guides, we're not any better anglers than you are. It's the frequency of the time that we spend out on the water that makes us better. And then obviously that's why you all come to the meetings and go to the seminars and stuff, is to get some knowledge from our experiences on the water to help subsidize the lack of your availability to get out on the water.
Do you ever fish the kitchens area?
I don't fish the kitchen much at all. It's really, really skinny water back in there, particularly in the wintertime. One thing I would recommend too, if you get a chance, get a pair of waders or high boots though, and go over there and find one of those shallow sandbars or oyster bars and just park up close to it. Get over there and hit the troughs on the opposite side on foot, and find some of these potholes, and they're gonna hold a lot of fish. You're gonna be literally like shooting fish in a barrel. This is the time of year. There's a guy over there, he has that Jackie Lynx beef jerky boat. I can't remember his name, but he fishes over out of O'Neill's. But he said that's what he does this time of year. He's just got four sets of waders in his boat, and he comes over the Cockroach Bay, pulls up on the beach, and sets his clients out on the beach. Sets his clients out on the sandbar in a pair of waders, and lets them go fish the flats over there at the other side of the trough. Because a lot of times the water's so low you can't get over that first trough. So if you just come over there and park up close to that first trough or that first sandbar, and then fish into that first trough, you'll have a lot of good luck. Kayakers would be beneficial to get in there and do that kind of thing.
Yeah, the good news is that house back there, it's for sale.
Yeah,
18.5 million.
that's all?
That's all.
But
They
hey, it's
could take a
200
check.
acres.
200 acres,
200 acres, 6 bedrooms, 6 baths.
plus the islands.
plus
Includes the islands.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, and nobody ever be able to do anything there. That's why, that's the reason he bought that. Nobody will ever be able to do anything, you know, would take all kinds of, cost too much money to go through all the agencies you'd have to go through to be able to build or whatever.
Is that big one in the kitchen?
Yep,
It's beautiful.
just went on the market
Yeah, it is.
today. So,
That's not that old. That was just
It's
built.
like 5 years old, 4 years
Yeah.
old.
yeah.
I
So,
thought when
yeah.
they blocked off all the kayakers, you'd be like, man, I'll stay here forever. And he's out in 5 years.
I was waiting for
Hey,
it.
you have, how much money you got invested there in Apollo Beach? You think about that?
My life spendings are here in Apollo Beach. That's a debatable number, though.
The ecology part of your life. What do you consider to be the biggest threat to Tampa Bay? Not like the threat that they have in Lake Okeechobee, not like the threat that they have down in towards Sanibel and that, Port Charlotte, the trouble they've had they had red tide for, what, 18 months, give or take, almost a year and a half.
Cities dumping wastewater for a bay.
Well,
Constantly.
That's it.
You say that, but you know, it's amazing,
Some of that's beneficial. It's
Really?
nutrient rich, but at the same time, it's detrimental. My answer would be water quality. The nitrates and the nitrates and nutrients that flow out from all the residential canals, the outflows from sanitation overflows, those are the kind of things that are detrimental to the Tampa Bay. The reason being is it creates algae blooms, not like you have down there, but you notice in the wintertime versus the summertime, the water is much more clear, right? Okay. What that is it's an algae that just grows naturally, but it's overfed from the nutrient-rich waters that's running off from the fertilizers and the sanitation run that helps exacerbate that issue. What the problem with that being is you have less light penetration to help the plant life on the bottom of the substrate to photosynthesize. So you lose a lot of grasses. And one of the projects I worked with over there was with Tampa Bay Watch over there at Feather Sound. We took out a lot of residential canals with the help of the Army Corps of Engineers. Not residential canals, we took out a lot of mosquito canals and stuff like that, and help retain that water so that nutrient-rich stuff could actually just sequester in the soils themselves rather than running straight into the bay. What you saw over a period of about, I think it's been 7 years now, is you've seen a 25% increase of seagrass rejuvenation in the bay over the last 5 to 7, 8 years. Same things happen over here. So you get that heavy nutrient-rich effluence that comes out from these canals and the residentials and golf courses. Golf courses are one of the biggest contributors. And it flows out and it feeds us algae. The algae gets really thick and dense, and it sort of doesn't let the plants sort of photosynthesize, and then they don't grow as well or lush, or they don't propagate as much as they would normally do. Some places you see seagrass is starting to grow. I'm starting to see seagrass beds grow a lot more in Apollo Beach flats now, but you start to see some of it diminish further south. So it's sort of a boom and bust in certain areas. So
One of the
water
things-
quality would be a big thing.
One of the things we learned last year when we were fighting that Chris's Plumbing started to dump all their stuff. The actual tide flow through Symphony Isles, through the little Manatee and all that, it takes one hellacious moon, one of the super moons,
Yes.
whatever, to get all that stuff to go out and go in. You know, that water basically stays there. So if you get something
Right.
like that in there, it's there.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to talk about misinformation, just before Christmas, Terry and I were watching, and on the scroll at the bottom said that Clark Environmental was going to get all this stuff coming from somewhere in near Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Myers.
Is it Fort Myers? I'm sorry, you're right. There's some block near a low-income housing project where they put calcium carbonate, something, like Shell, Oyster Shell or.
Calcium carbonate.
Clam Shell,
Yeah.
And they just put it there, well, stuff was starting to sink in the house. Well, this TV station went ballistic and said, oh, it's toxic waste that was put there 40 years ago, and it's going to harm all these people. Well, of course, now the county has to go and figure out how they're gonna get rid of it. And, you know, they're stressing out, of course, it's just hammer, hammer, hammer. And then they find out that no, it's calcium carbonate is not a great big problem. It's pretty much everywhere.
Right.
It's just anything, it's so soft that anything will sink into it. So then, out of the clear blue, they go with the county's figured it all out. They're going to spend all this money. It's going to take them 4 years to get all this stuff trucked somewhere else. And then the same TV station goes, okay, we know it's not toxic. They didn't actually say that. Why in the world is the county spending over $4 million messing with this stuff?
It's bad press, sells more than good press.
Isn't it crazy? But you don't know Jim, but there's a gentleman named Jim Clark that was here the first night, and he owns a place called Clark Environmental where they clean dirty dirt. They burn it over in Mulberry, and he's going to get 4 months worth out of it, supposedly. But there's some guy over in one of the lake towns over in Polk County. I don't know which lake. There's 18 different lake towns over there.
Right.
Anyway, he's come to the meetings and he's going crazy because all this, what he considers to be toxic waste, is coming to Polk County. Well, again, it's not. It's actually beneficial to where they're going to put it. So he has to fight all that. My question to him was, well, if this guy's all worried about that, how many of the Mosaic meetings has he been to, screaming and yelling and hollering at what Mosaic has done to Polk County for the last 60 years?
60 years, yeah.
At least. I know the 20 years that I've been down here. But that's the problem, is the misinformation that you get from it. You know, is Big Sugar really affecting Tampa Bay? Probably not. But that much. As much as me spitting is going to help replenish water out here in the bay, you know. But I'm glad to hear that. I saw a post where somebody was talking about, was 100,000 gallons of unsanitized waste came off out of St. Pete last week with all the rain or whatever.
Yeah, there's like 24,000 and then like 60,000.
Yeah, so somewhere,
It
yeah.
was
I think
almost
80,000.
a million
Clear water
gallons.
in Tampa.
Was it really?
So
Among
anyway,
all the municipalities that
Yeah.
dump in the bay, it was almost a million gallons.
So the
over-
beautiful part of it
over
is
a month or so.
Yeah.
Mahoney and all his graciousness, and you know, Mahoney is such a easy person. He's just so politically correct. Says, yeah, let's spend $500 million on another pier over there, but let's not worry about the sewer system you got over there.
Yep.
At St. Pete. That's the part that just. But I guess my biggest problem is when we started here. One thing I learned was in 2008, fishing was an $18 billion industry, but it supports 17 types of businesses. It supports Disney. It supports Busch Gardens. It supports the places where you get your ice. It supports airports. It supports United Airlines, all that stuff.
Budweiser.
All of that stuff. But name it, you name it, it supports it. Well, now it's down to about somewhere between 10 and 12 because of the way we've taken care of it. And so, well, I shouldn't say it that way. Because of the fact that they did not get ahead of the oil spill. There wasn't anybody here bothered by the oil spill, other than the fact people were scared to death to come here to fish.
Right.
Because, God, there was oil spill, because that's what everybody said on TV.
Right.
Well, it's the same way with what we've got going now. And I can't figure out how the state can do so much for Disney, so much for all the other, but they don't get the aspect of clean water and fishing, because that's used to be an $18 billion industry. And, you know, Trump's asking for $5 billion to build a wall. $6 billion they've lost in fish, from the fishing industry. From water quality in the last 10 years. That's just, we've got to get people to watch stuff like this and to have a semi-intelligent conversation without screaming at the people from Sugar.
Yeah.
You know, go down to below Fort Myers and start screaming that.
Yeah.
Go on the East Coast, I'm gonna guess is worse for Sugar, is it not? Little, some of the
They're
places.
both, Florida Bay
Yeah, but-
is lacking because of the lack of fluid
It's-
water going through there.
My understanding though is the fact that there's some of the big areas over on the East Coast that are, where the industry is affected.
Mhm.
Not the water quality, the industry
Yeah.
is affected,
Yeah.
more on the East Coast is my point.
Yeah.
I can't understand how to can go crazy over whether or not we're gonna be able to catch so many American red snapper or so many this or the other, and they haven't worried that much about the water quality.
Right.
It's just dumbfounding to me.
Right, well, it's, I don't know an answer to that question other than the fact that when the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You look at, food effects and the money involved with the effect. People inside the fish the estuaries in Tampa Bay are, you know, not as wealthy as those individuals that are going offshore catching the red snapper on occasion, typically.
Right.
Not as big a vested interest in doing that. They're not as well connected, maybe. I don't know. I'll be grasping at straws to try and come to a conclusion on that one. But water quality in Tampa Bay, and all of the inshore fishing in Florida needs to be paid more attention to.
I know this, in the Virginia Beach area, and where the Chesapeake and all meets the ocean there in Virginia, they've made a big deal of it. And now if you look, well, if you go to the Southshore Anglers group and see some of the posts there, they come from all up and down the East Coast. There's groups that go out and fish for the striped bass, the big rock fish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's not better now than it was 60 years ago. Because they went to the trouble to see to it the water quality was better, and that they used the slots and used the, you know, everything to their credit, because there's really some nice fish being taken up there now.
Yeah.
And everybody's happy. So,
I think one thing to do, the difference, the argument between the American red snapper harvest limits versus the water quality is that the harvest limits are something that can get changed right now. The water limits, it's something that you feel like you're banging your head against the wall at a certain
yeah,
point.
that's the true part too.
You know, you could argue the fact that the snapper limits need to be increased because we've got this. You know, you've got tangible evidence that shows through fishing adventures that the harvest limits could be increased because the populations are strong. Whereas your argument with water, it's going to take so many different tiers of government in order to get some of that stuff paid attention to.
Now, my last question, and I'm hoping everybody that wants to fish in the trout tournament pays attention to this. The first trout tournaments we had, you could get a 20-inch to 22-inch fish, you were right in the money. What's it take now, John, 26?
26 or 28.
26 to 28 inches. And it's in, it would be the second or third weekend in March when we have it. It's the 16th, so I think it becomes the third weekend this year, the way that the month falls.
I better not see you there, Jordan.
What?
I know where to go.
What? I'm not, one of our best ever times was, we had Mike and Billy come out, and Mahoney sat back here and kept going on about, didn't want his spot, but what would you be looking for? I know a couple places that I would go, but if you're looking for an upper, you know, you're talking about 25-inch trout.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking about when it comes March?
Outflows of the water coming out of the major bodies of the major tributaries. Those are going to be some of the places to go to. Clean, clear water. Look for, it's still going to be kind of cool that day. Look for dark water. Look for grass, seagrasses. one thing to keep in mind when you're dealing with the big trout is that they're sound driven predatory fish. That's why popping corks work so well for them. Your snook are sight driven, your redfish are scent driven, and your trout are sound driven. Look for dark water, because dark water is going to heat up. Black truck heats up a lot faster than a white truck. So look for that muddy flat bottom. Trout, the bigger trout, the big gator trout that you're looking for, eat on average once every other day. They don't eat all the time like the smaller fish do, but the fish that they eat, they're going to be finger mullet of 6 inches long. They're going to be pinfish. They're going to be big baits. So don't be afraid to use bigger baits when you're fishing for these bigger gator trout. Also find the tidal creeks, one, and the other is the potholes. Find the potholes. The flats have produced lots of big gator trouts for me. Doing exactly what I was telling you about fishing perpendicular and finding that trout bite. When you're finding those canals, those ridges that run north and south next to the shoreline. But thick, lush grass is going to be one of your better places to go to. The place that's got really good grass, once the grass starts to regrow, well, the grass has kind of died back. It's not dying back. It's going into a dormancy stage, so it's losing its external and extensional leaflets and everything. But the rhizomes in the grass are staying alive, and once March starts coming around and starts warming up again, they're going to start flushing out again, and the grasses get really thick and lush again. So try to find good grass flats. One of the good grass flats, I call it the hump. It's on the south side of Manbirdie or Port Manatee Spoil Island there. On the back south side, you've got an area that goes around the outside that's anywhere from 6 to 10 feet of water. But inside that little area there's 3 to 4 or 5 foot grass flats in there, and that's produced a lot of trout in the past year, and some really good trout. And Spanish mackerel will be getting up again there.
Since you've gone there, I can tell you that on the other side of that, as you're going into Bishop's, come around, if you're coming from like Joe's Island or that end, or that corner right there, well, there's some big trout that will sit in there too.
Yes.
On either side, depending on incoming, you want to be on the south side. Outgoing, you want to be on the north side.
Exactly.
Closer in from Manbury Key, from what you're talking about, on the big trout. I know that 7 years ago, we had a guy that fished the tournament the year before, and we saw him the next year right after the tournament. He said, "You all just had your tournament, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, they went fishing for trout. They didn't even think about the tournament. And they caught a 30-inch, 29 to 28-inch trout on that south side, one after the other, 2 sons and a father, and they would have won everything. Said the youngest son said, "You know, we could be fishing in that tournament. You know what's coming up? Why don't you say something?" Said, "You almost threw him off the boat, left him there." Again this year, guys, we will be giving away our 10th power pole. 10 power poles. That's pretty special.
That's impressive.
And do you know what we charge to fish in our tournament?
What?
$25.
Really?
Now until the end of
25 bucks for 10 years.
until the end of this club, that's what it'll be.
That's what it'll always be, $25.
One thing when you're scouting is one thing I found is I use artificials when I go scouting for trout. One thing is because it's a broadcast bait, you're taking the bait to the fish rather than waiting on the fish to come to your shrimp. Like I said, trout are audible feeders, so they respond well to that sound vibration from the popping corks, but nothing beats getting out there and actually broadcasting through there. Some of the lures I use are DOA cows. New pennies, the color of choice that I use. Another one is Unfair Lures. Unfair Lures has got a really cool new jig head. It's got like a red gill frill on the jig head itself, with just some small plastic swim baits on the back of it. But you can't beat them. I mean, I can sit there and catch 13 trout and 13 casts some places. And once you find those areas, locate those areas and find them, then come back in and fish them for the tournament.
I love a Mirrodine.
And Mirrodine's good too. Yeah,
Has a little bit, it's not quite a rattle trap.
Yep.
Yes.
Top
But
waters
it's
are good
close.
too.
Yep.
Early in the season in March, you don't have that grass float on the surface. You don't have all that loose grass that's coming breaking off and stuff. So it's a good time to use those Mirrodines and top water spooks and things like that as well too. Any kind of soft plastic jerk bait. That's a good point as well. One thing I want to tell you, when you're using those plastic baits, the jig head weight makes a lot of difference. given the depth of water that you're fishing. If you're fishing 2 feet of water, 3 feet of water, use a very light 16th ounce jig head. If you're using deeper water, go to an 1/8 ounce. The reason being is you want to have that bait in the strike zone longer. So you want to have that paddle tail working. The majority of the time those trout hit, they're going to hit on the downward slope. Okay, they're not going to hit it on the way up. They're going to hit it after you've jerked it out of the grass and it starts coming down. When I retrieve my baits, I do a double bump method, just a bump, 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 bump. So that bait does this when it comes out of the water and dives. Bump, bump. So the first one is, actually it's just to see if the fish is there because he may have hit it on the way down. So the first one is the bump, and then you set the hook. So you're already ready. So if you get that double bump method down pat, you're gonna get a lot better hook set. It's gonna be bump, bump, or it's gonna be bump, fish on. So those are some things I wanted to really, just came to mind really quick, was jig head weight makes a lot of difference depending on the weight, the depth of the water that you're fishing. You want that bait visible for a longer period of time before it hits the bottom.
Anybody else got any questions?
Does anyone here fish trout at night? Night?
Yeah, dock lights.
Yeah, okay.
Grass flats.
Grass flats at night?
Oh,
Chesapeake.
kayak.
Kayak, yeah.
Can be a
Usually
little
when I-
scary at night though.
Oh, I'm sure. I fish dock lights at night with clients because it's something that they can see and it's entertaining. They can see the fish and it's something that keeps their interest the entire time.
Yeah. It seems you have to be quiet. One thing, you forget to close the bail and just shut, crank the bail up, leave, you're done.
I like the one that when you pull up there and you see all the snook underneath the dock lights and then he decides he's gonna get a beer and slam the cooler lid.
Yeah.
Gotta be kidding me.
Thrown over.
Or the guy that locates school of redfish, same thing.
Right, yeah. Or the guy that hooks the dock light and then yells out really loud, "I hooked this dock light!" Don't say that out loud. Just prick it
About
off.
10 seconds later, the dock light gets turned off.
Yeah.
That's when it gets, yeah. Most of the people don't really mind you fishing their dock lights. It's when you go over there and tie off on their dock. That's when they really tend to get a little bit aggravated.
That probably caused me to have consternation too.
Yeah.
Or when you wake them up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Screaming, "I caught the dock light." Yeah, that one doesn't.
That's a good one, isn't it?
What's that?
That's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I caught the dog.
I caught the dock light.
I caught
See
the
lights
dog
turn
light,
on.
the best.
God. We gotta go now.
I believe the owner can impose salvage rights on that boat if you tie up without permission.
Possibly.
Keep the
That's a good
boat.
idea.
Yeah, I didn't give it permission. I'm learning these things, so.
Anybody else have any questions? What's your favorite fish to catch?
One of
Redfish.
my line.
Harpoon.
Harpoon? Wrong season.
No?
That's where you go.
Yeah.
Not the wrong time of the